Hello retro gamers, how are you? Today I'm reviewing Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, released in 2004 on the original Xbox by Ubisoft. Now I know I'm meant to review retro games on this channel, but even Pandora Tomorrow is now 12 years old now, so meh. In actual fact, I just really wanted to play a game in this series and I hadn't before, so I thought I might as well make a video review out of it. Although I know I should probably be playing this series in order, since Pandora Tomorrow is actually a sequel to the original 2002 Splinter Cell release, and I do own that. But I found the disc for that in an Xbox disc drive that was given to me as a spare, and I don't own the box. That disc does work, but I didn't review it because no box at the start equals no money shot. Hey, it makes a difference.
It's the scary and politically unstable future of 2006, and a CIA-trained terrorist named Sedona, who's gone rogue against America, is up to no good. You play as Sam Fisher, who works for a black ops department within the NSA called Third Echelon. Instead of listening into phone calls and tracking Dweeb's metadata to take this evil menace down, however, Fisher instead uses espionage as he learns that Sedona has placed a series of biological bombs all over the USA. If detonated, everyone gets a smallpox virus in a grand terrorist scheme named Pandora Tomorrow. So it's up to you and all your gizmos and superior crouching skills to save America. Whether you're into this type of Tom Clancy storyline or not, the gameplay in Pandora Tomorrow is fantastic regardless, as long as you're into stealth games. This is not the sort of game where you can run in guns a-blazing, shooting terrorist scum on sight. No, this game requires a lot of patience, puzzle solving, and trial and error. While the levels are more linear than I would have liked apart from a few short deviations, you'll spend a lot of time hiding in the shadows and watching enemies, either attacking and killing them if it's allowed, or simply sneaking past. I'm worried my viewers won't be able to see much in this review, but you know, that's kind of the whole point of Splinter Cell. This game is all about sneaking around in the dark after all. There is a stealth meter on the bottom right of the screen that shows how visible you are, which is also affected by the amount of noise you're making depending on if you're crouching or not. If it's all the way to the right, then you're going to be quite apparent and probably receive the business end of a bullet, but if you play your cards right and keep it to the left, then you can quite easily sneak right past enemies. Most light sources in the game can be destroyed, and while this might make nearby enemies suspicious, they're going to be suspicious in complete darkness. While they won't be able to see a thing, you can activate night vision as well as heat vision and gain the advantage. While those enabled, I did notice that you can't see as far into the distance and really bright areas will become too overexposed however, so it's up to you to strike a good balance of using the hardware. If the guards do catch on that they're not alone though, then an alarm will be sounded. This will mean the guards will become more aware and don more protective equipment, making them harder to kill. If you sound a certain amount of alarms, then it's game over. Most missions allow 3, but of course the missions that don't even allow 1, like the train level, are a lot more challenging. There are plenty of other elements in Pandora Tomorrow that will catch you up aside from Sedona's goons however, with many not actively highlighted in the levels, keeping you on your toes. The automated turrets for instance can only be deactivated by finding their computer console, from which you can either deactivate it completely or set it to fire on the very enemies they're supposed to be protecting. Booby traps are another workplace hazard for fish to look out for too, of which are only visible when the heat vision is activated. There are plenty of others too like motion detectors and cameras, and it's up to you to figure out how to bypass or destroy them. This can be achieved by the many gadgets made available to you, but to be honest I only use a select few. The positive to this is that you can develop your own playstyle using what you see fit if it's available. Personally, I was a big fan of using a combination of the silent automatic scoped rifle and the non-lethal sticky shooters if I wasn't allowed to kill anyone. Using the optic cable to see under doors was used quite a bit too, since it gives a distinct advantage. There's also the lockpick, which wasn't always needed, but it does grant you access to rooms full of goodies, so it's usually advisable. Using that requires a minigame to be played also, which some may recognise these days in Assassin's Creed games, which of course shares a Ubisoft logo on its cover with Pandora Tomorrow. I know people may instantly jump up and around with hate at even the mere mention of Assassin's Creed, but Syndicate was actually pretty darn good. Sadly though, no one will believe me. Anyway, otherwise, there were plenty of items I didn't even use once, like the camera jammer. Usually, if there was a camera I just shot it. If indestructible, then I would just shoot the lights out around it. I never came across a situation where I couldn't do either. The game does make you use a few others to progress the storyline however, like the laser microphone to listen in on conversations. Also scattered around the levels are medical kits mounted to the wall, which can be used to either partially or fully regenerate health. The reason for that is that they're all connected within each level. Use a bit out of one, and the next one you come across will be missing that same amount, so you have to be careful when pacing yourself in each level. Like I've mentioned a few times already, the game includes both killing and non-lethal sections. The sections where you're allowed to be a murderous NSA agent are obviously a lot easier, as long as you hide the bodies in the dark where they won't be seen. I was initially having a lot of trouble with the non-lethal sections because I thought you could either only sneak past enemies or grab them from behind and skull them, which I understand isn't exactly that non-lethal, but regardless, suffers from minor crappy hit detection, meaning I was caught out a lot. This was of course until I realized you could straight up slap a fool. Just walk up and get slap happy. Works a charm. Those sections were a lot easier after that. In a nutshell, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow is a fantastic game and I could easily recommend it, but it does have one glaring negative in the Xbox version, and that's to do with the pacing of the checkpoints and the saving system. I love stealth games personally, I really get a kick out of working in the shadows out of view, but this usually takes a lot of trial and error and waiting around. If there is going to be that, then a good saving system is essential to avoid repetition when you die, which will likely happen a lot. In the PC version of Splinter Cell, you can save whenever you damn well please, which is exactly how it should be, but in the Xbox version, there are poorly placed checkpoints which are the only times you can save. For whatever reason that transcends all common sense, a lot of the checkpoints are placed at inappropriate times that make retrying parts of levels after failing more painful than they need to be. For example, there is a part where you go down a lift for a period of time while Fisher and his superiors have a bit of a chat before a challenging area that has lots of enemies. This is fine, except for the fact that the checkpoint is right before you go down the lift, meaning that every time you die in this particularly hard section of the game, you have to sit through that damn lift right again. Over and over, the same 30 seconds of dialogue while you idly stand around in this fucking lift. It's like Groundhog Day. When you finally pass a section, you're not happy that you've achieved something, but instead you're relieved to not have to sit through that meaningless crap again, which could have been easily avoided if there was more tactful placement of the checkpoints. I know it may sound like I'm being dramatic, but so many checkpoints were like this, and it just boggles my mind that more thought wasn't put into it, especially when other versions of the game let you save whenever you want. I'm obviously no expert on the architecture of an Xbox, but surely being able to save on cue was something that it would have been capable of. So yes, I did just rant there a bit, but I can't stress enough how good this game is otherwise. If I gave my reviews a score, it would be pretty close to a 10. I really found myself looking forward to playing it in between sessions. Anyway, before we finish up, let's talk about the audio and visuals. The eerie and ambient music fits in incredibly well with the overall theme, and really aids in making you feel like a super sneaky fella. It's also equally welcome when the game decides to go completely silent too, as it all just fits in so well. Looking besides the music though, it's a shame that subtitles were not included for all in-game speech. When talking directly to someone, the game does thankfully show them, but since it seems to suffer from some weird 3D audio problem, hearing anything else can sometimes be a challenge. The audio of someone talking will be perfectly audible if listening from one side, but if you turn the camera around then the audio level of their speech can fade out almost completely. If you're trying to eavesdrop on some cronies, this can be a problem since you rarely have much choice in location to hear them from. I guess the laser mic would have been good to use in those situations come to think of it, but I should stress that this seems to be a problem with how the game perceives audio from different directions. Aside from that, voice acting was mostly okay for a game from the mid-2000s, although the choice of voice actors was sometimes questionable. There is a lot of non-Americans in this game with American accents. Hearing a terrorist commenting on arrogant Americans with a perfect American accent is all sorts of strange. Graphics convey the light and dark distinction of environments quite well, and the cutscenes are fairly enjoyable too, especially the news reports filling in the gaps. The atmospheric effects were nice too, be it long shadows, heavy rain, waving long grass, or even the motion of hanging onto the side of a train while another whizzes by within inches. This is simply a good looking game, and on that note I don't really know what else to say in regards to the graphics. I mean, they're good, look at them, not much else is needed to be said.
There is a lot to this game and I reasonably couldn't fit it all into this review. I think this video has gone long enough, but if you like stealth games then I highly recommend Pandora Tomorrow. It's personally one of my favourite stealth games that I've ever played. A big portion of this game which I can't review though is the online mode, which was such a big deal at the time that it takes up half the instruction manual. Unfortunately I couldn't play that mode because the online servers are long turned off, but I could highly recommend Pandora Tomorrow for the single player alone.
Hello retro gamers and thank you so much for watching. I haven't been able to release a video for a few weeks, but there has been some activity on retrogameon.com, which actually just hit 100,000 views overall. The newest post that's been getting the most views is an article I wrote on a new retro gaming store in my home city of Perth called Retro Collect. I visited the other day in Armdale and took lots of photos and spent a bit of money, so if you want to see what a brand spanking new retro store looks like, then check it out. In a separate post, I also talk about a good experience I had in a cash converters where they actually gave me a free game. If you've been following my blog to any degree for the last year and a half, then you know how much I used to like them, an opinion of which sadly changed, so maybe they're on the upwards mend. If you want to check those out and more, then a link is in the description, as well as annotated in this very video if you're watching on a computer. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.